Assyria began in 850 BC and fell in 612 BC. They are known for their cruelty and warlike behavior. The land that they occupied was a flat, open area that was surrounded by mountains, so they were pretty defenseless against the people who would sweep down on them from the mountains. Many speculate that this is why they became so warlike and gruesome. The kings of Syria were famous for building their empire, that spanned from the east and north of the Tigris River to central Egypt, all by military action. King Sennacherib has claimed to order a burning of 89 cities, destruction of 820 villages, given the order to execute all of the inhabitants of their conquered land, and to burn and destroy Babylon. However, the same king who destroyed all of these cities also built their capital, Nineveh, along the Tigris River. The city was the largest city of its time, spanning 3 miles long and a mile wide. The city was filled with sculptures of military campaigns and lion hunts, but it also was home to one of the largest libraries in the ancient world. The library was organized much like our libraries today. It had specific rooms for each genre and was organized similar to how we do it today. This was very ahead of their time. The Europeans didn't use a cataloging system for centuries after the Assyrians. The library was home to over 20,000 clay tablets from all over the Fertile Crescent, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, which students all over the world read today. Sumer began in 3000 BC and fell in 2350 BC, and is believed to be the first recorded civilization. It was located in Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Syria, northern Iraq, and Turkey. The government was originally run by priests of the temples, and the ziggurat used to be both a temple and a city hall. However, the commanders of the army soon gained enough power to rule the city-states themselves. Once they took over, Sumer fell into the era of dynasties as the commanders passed their crown down to their children, and they did the same. The Sumerians are most known for their written language called cuneiform. Cuneiform was a written language that was made of slashes and shapes. This was extremely important because it allowed Sumerians to keep track of who owed their taxes, mistakes that had been made, stories to be written down, and many other things. The Sumerians had a very large surplus of food due to the extremely rich soil in the Fertile Crescent. When you combine the rich soil with their engineering, they had enough food to provide for their civilization and to trade for other raw materials that they do not have. This supported their economy greatly. The religion that everybody followed was polytheistic. They believed that each city-state was looked after by a god and that all humans were just God's servants. They had specific gods that controlled nature, like Enlil, the god of storm and air. They especially feared and respected him because he controlled when the Euphrates River flooded. They also had demons like Ugulu, which protected them from evil demons that caused misfortune and misery. Sumerians were able to survive because they were very independent. They built irrigation systems to get water to the people and then to the plants. They built walls around the city out of mud bricks as a first line of defense, and they traded for the things they didn't have. Since they established an organized government, they were able to have order across all of the land, and they also contributed greatly to our knowledge of math as well as our architecture. In 2000 BC, the Amorites nomadic warriors invaded Mesopotamia. They eventually overwhelmed the Sumerians and made their capital, Babylon, on the Euphrates River. They expanded their empire over the years, but were the most successful during the reign of King Hammurabi, from 1792 BC to 1750 BC. His legacy is most famously known for Hammurabi's Code, which was a set of laws that he established to unify his diverse empire. The code consisted of 282 laws about family relations, business conduct, and all types of crime. The code protects everybody, except people of different class as well as men and women receive different punishments. The code is most famously known for its idea of punishment equal to the crime, and Hammurabi's code is written as an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Long after the Babylonians died out, Hammurabi's code was still the base for many governments, civilizations, and countries' laws.
Today we are here in Turkey, and right here on this very soil used to be a group called the Hittites. They occupied Asia Minor by around 2000 BC. The peninsula we are here on right now is surrounded by the Black Sea on the northern side and the Mediterranean on the southern side. Some of the things that made this group so successful was their geography, where the land was rich with agriculture and timber, and nearby mountains held mineral deposits. These features made the Hittite civilization very valuable, as they had access to many materials other groups at the time didn't have, so they had the luck of the trade on their side. The Hittites were the first to work with iron in weapon making around 1500 BC, making them extremely powerful in combat, especially by using iron in their chariots, because they were aware that it could hold a sharper edge than bronze.
Yes, hello Charlotte. I am currently in the Battle of the Hittites. You can see this is they're traveling all around. They're going crazy with these. Oh God! Oh God!
This iron ore was easily accessible to them in the nearby mountains, and the chariots made the group especially successful militarily. The Hittites ruled over Babylon for a decent period of time, which was a main section of their rise to success. They tried expanding their Southwest Asian empire to northern Syria, however, could not gain more control over the region than Egypt had. Eventually, the two decided to sign a peace treaty and become war allies. The group reached their peak under the reign of King and his son Mursili II. The Hittites' main decline was almost right after Mursili II fell out of power and weakened as other civilizations began to challenge its power and chip away at the stability of the empire. The empire fell suddenly and quickly around 1190 BC, when invasions from tribes from the north, mostly the Sea Peoples and the Kaska, became frequent, and the capital city was eventually burned. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire conquered sections of southeastern Europe, northern Africa, and southwestern Asia. The rise of this group started with their first leader, whose name was Osman, and he named his followers after himself, becoming the Ottomans. He built a small Muslim state around 1300 AD, and it expanded as time went on. The second Ottoman leader was Orkhan I, who was Osman's son, and he called himself the Sultan of the Ottomans. He conquered Adrianople, a major city in the Byzantine Empire, so this was a big accomplishment for the group. Their success started around 1453, when Sultan II conquered Constantinople, current-day Istanbul. His grandson came to power in 1512, defeating the Safavids, Syria, parts of northern Africa, Mecca, Medina, and Cairo under his rule. This is where the Ottomans were really growing their empire and becoming a strong military force. The peak of the empire was during the reign of Suleiman, Selim's son, who came to throne in 1521, ruling for 46 years. He conquered Belgrade, a European city, in 1521, and in 1522 helped conquer the island of Rhodes, and now had control over the entire eastern Mediterranean region. He captured Tripoli, parts of the North African coast, only controlling coastal cities of Africa. However, with this little control, they still had great benefits, such as total control over the trade routes that went through the interior of Africa as well. And in 1526, they advanced their empire to Hungary and Austria, panicking Central Europeans. Sultan Suleiman kept peace within the religions of his empire by following his Islamic law. He treated the different communities of other religions as nations, who were allowed their own religious laws and practices, and the heads of these nations would report to the Sultan and his staff. This kept conflict to a minimum within the empire's people. The empire fell slowly with a new tradition between the sultans, where the sultan would have to have his brothers strangled and held as prisoners, which cut off their access to education or to the rest of the world. This made the generations of sultans weaker and weaker, eventually bringing the fall of the Ottoman Empire, along with when equal citizenship was agreed to be given to all the people under the Ottoman rule in 1856. Conservative Turks didn't like this new situation and became angry because they were happy with the current state, causing tensions to arise, and the empire fell shortly after World War I around 1923. The Ottoman government was based around ruling the groups of people they conquered through local officials who were appointed by the Sultan. Because the empire was so large, they needed an efficient government and social structure, in which Sultan Suleiman created a law code to handle civil and criminal actions, simplifying and limiting taxes, and this organized and reduced government bureaucracy. The Devshirme system was also present, in which the Sultan's army drafted boys from the people of the conquered Christian territories, where they were educated, converted to Islam, and trained as soldiers. An elite group were called the Janissaries and were trained to be loyal to the Sultan and him only. The discipline of these groups contributed greatly to the Ottomans' military success, along with their use of gunpowder, replacing archers and horses with muskets and foot runners. The Ottomans were also one of the first groups of people to use cannons as a weapon in battle. Now we must remember that during all of this, the Ottoman Empire was mainly following the Sunni sect of the Islam religion. As the empire grew, it spread its religion with it, making the gap between the two sects grow even larger. Today we are right here in Saudi Arabia, talking about the Abbasid dynasty. The Abbasids came to power in 750 AD by conquering the Umayyads. Their period of success started with moving the capital city to Baghdad. The trade, river transport, and transportation, and agriculture made the city thrive. Agricultural productivity was expanded with an efficient canal system in Iraq. Commerce flourished with trade along well-established routes from India to Spain and trans-Saharan routes. A banking and bookkeeping system with letters of credit facilitated trade. The production of textiles, papermaking, metalwork, ceramics, ornaments, soap, and inlaid wood goods was encouraged. An extensive postal system and network of government spies were also established. The Abbasid government was a caliphate, and heavily influenced by Islam religion. Because the region was majorly Muslim, the government often argued over whether it should be run by influence of Islam or on its own. And also who would be running the government sparked conversation, as some thought that certain people weren't fit for the role based on the type of Muslim that they were, and some thought they were most fit because they were direct descendants of Muhammad. Most of the caliphate's success was under the rule of Harun al-Rashid, who ruled from 786 AD to 809 AD. The decline of the Abbasids was the civil war that erupted after Harun al-Rashid's death, and people were fighting over who would take rule next. This war lasted from 809 to 833, and at the end, the capital city was moved to Samarra.
So, as you can see, the country is in utter chaos. You see what I mean? The leader has recently been killed. Thousands of people are fighting over who will be the next one. Oh my god.
The group was weakened even more when groups of slaves joined together and rebelled during another time period of fighting over who would rule. This rebellion was crushed and the capital was moved back to Baghdad. However, the caliphate never regained its utmost power back and fell slowly from there on. The fall of the Abbasid Caliphate lasted until 1258 AD, which was the official end of the civilization. The location of the Abbasids varies based on which map you are looking at, but they were based around the Arabian Peninsula, with the land also going farther into Asia, Europe, and Africa. With the capital city as Baghdad, the group could interact through trade by way of the Indian Ocean and Mediterranean Sea trading networks. The land network connected the Silk Roads with China and India with Europe and Africa, and Arabic itself was a highly valuable language in this trade. Their economy was heavily dependent on socks, which were extremely similar to checks, where merchants could exchange them for money at any bank in the entire empire, and also dinars. Dinars were coined first made during the Umayyad dynasty.
Yeah, I'm here with Alexander, the prize pupil of Aristotle, who has just managed to pull off an amazing win against Darius III and his army of 60,000 Persians, leading his army of just 35,000 soldiers, into Anatolia in this fine year of 334 BC. He defeated this large army with nearly half of the soldiers. What do you have to say about this great battle?
You know, it was a good battle, but we were unmatched. I first met Darius III at the Granicus River, and, he just needed backup. He only had 40,000 soldiers, and still we were unmatched.
So, what is your great plan after this battle?
I plan to defeat all of his army and take over the entire Persian Empire.
Excellent. That sounds like a great plan.
It is a great.
Oh, look, there's another Persian. Come on, let's go. Oh, God. Okay, just 1 second. Do you have any last words? Oh, yes! Oh, what a way to go. Back to you.
Alexander also had many cultural influences by the way he ruled and how he would fight with his soldiers, even if it meant risking death. After defeating the Persians, he began to also wear their clothing, and even married a Persian woman. In 661, the Umayyads began to gain power after Ali was assassinated. The family moved the Muslim capital to Damascus, as it was farther away from Mecca. Although the location made conquering other territories easier, some Arab Muslims thought it was too far away from their native and sacred lands. Then we have the Sunni and Shia divide, which is based on how people viewed the rulings of the Umayyads. The Shia believed that Ali should have succeeded Muhammad, since he was one of his descendants. The Sunni believed that Muhammad's example is called the Sunnah. On top of that, both groups believed that the others had incorrectly interpreted the meanings of the Quran. In 550 BC, Cyrus, who was the Persian king at the time, used his military skills to conquer 2,000 miles of land in just 11 years. Aside from his military mind, he was also well respected as a king who was kind and respectful. Cyrus died in 530 BC. His son Cambyses conquered Egypt. His disrespectful remarks toward the Egyptian beliefs and religion contributed to reasons why many rebellions were led after his death. Darius, who was Cambyses' successor, had the main focus of regaining peace and order. As a former soldier, he led an army that extended the Persian Empire to a total of 2,500 miles and implemented provinces into the empire and appointed local officials to each area. The Royal Road, which was created during his time, provided a new travel for information and currency. For the first time, one set of coins could be exchanged throughout the entirety of an empire.
The Safavids were originally part of an Islamic religious brotherhood, but they aligned themselves with the Shia branch of Islam in the 1400s. Their territory was not an ideal one, sandwiched between the Ottomans, the Uzbek tribe, and the Mughal Empire. This geographical struggle meant that the Safavids needed a strong military. In 1499, a 12-year-old leader known as Ismail expanded the empire's borders deep into the Middle East with this military. Here to comment is Ismail. Yes, hello, here we are with Ismail. Now, Ismail, it's a pleasure to meet you, but I've been hearing you've become a little bit of a tyrant. Is that...
Well, ouch, I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean, you did kill everyone who wouldn't convert to Shiism, including all of Sunni Baghdad, so, call me crazy, but I'd say you were a little harsh on the Ottomans. Anyway, their leader, Selim the Great, actually, he even decided to get payback and later killed all of the Shia, so... Anyway, other than that, besides, we've arrived at the Battle of Chaldiran. The year is 1514, and it is a beautiful day. The Ottomans are honestly wrecking you guys, though, and I think it's kind of looking like you're going to lose. I mean, this here is still the border between modern-day Iran and Iraq, so...
Oh, yes, but my son Tomas will surely rebuild.
Yeah, okay, good luck with that. What? Oh, Tomas was right over here! Wow, Tomas, I've got to say, you've done pretty well for yourself here.
Yes, I've used artillery to expand the empire to the Caucasus Mountains, bringing Christians into the empire.
Just fantastic. Now, quick weather report. We're looking at a surefire golden age to become sweeping over the empire soon enough, but back to you. Thanks again, Luigi. The famous leader Shah Abbas, or Abbas the Great, took the Safavid throne in 1587. He saw the growth of the empire into a prosperous golden age through combining beneficial aspects of surrounding cultures. Abbas equipped his two armies, one made up of Persians and the other of northern Christians, with a modern artillery. He was known to punish corruption severely and valued loyalty above all else. Taking after the Seljuks, Abbas hired foreigners from neighboring areas for positions in his government. In order to convince European merchants that his empire was tolerant of other religions, he brought Christians into the empire. This tactic worked, and more European merchants moved into the land, increasing trade. The Shah also built a new capital called Esfahan. The giant city was considered to be one of the most decorated cities in the world. Hundreds of artisans from China, Armenia, and all around the empire used it to display their work, combining with Persian and Safavid design for a melting pot of cultures. The most important and famous Western addition for the Safavids was without a doubt the Persian rugs. The design started solely as Persian ones, then, as demand for the rugs increased, so did the mixing of designs of other empires and nations, like the incorporation of the Renaissance artist Raphael's influences from Shah Abbas's artists that he had sent to Italy for education. This prosperity came to a swift close, however, when Shah Abbas began the search for his successor. Like the Ottomans, the Safavids made the mistake of believing in the killing or blinding of the ablest of men, and so Abbas's incompetent grandson Safi succeeded him. Safi ruled unwisely, quickly bringing an end to the golden age of the empire. The last Safavid ruler, Nadir Shah, managed to expand the empire to India in 1736, but was such a cruel leader that a member of his troops murdered him in 1747. His death resulted in the immediate downfall of the last empire on our list for today. That's all for today, and see you later. Thank you. Seljuks were a Turkish group that migrated to the Abbasid Empire in the 10th century, eventually converting to Islam and conquering Baghdad from the Persians in 1055. Almost 20 years after that triumph, Turks conquered the Byzantine Empire at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. Over the next decade, the Seljuks came to control nearly all of Anatolia. Back in Baghdad, the Seljuks were kind rulers. Toghrul Beg, the founder of the Seljuk dynasty, chose the Persian city of Isfahan in the capital of the kingdom. They even allowed Persian rulers to hold places of governmental power. This brought the Turks very close to Constantinople, the Byzantine capital, leading to their near conquest of New Rome, aka Rum, which would last longer than the rest of Seljuk. The Turks adopted Persian writing, language, and learning styles as they converted to Islam as well. Seljuk Shahs supported famous writers like Rumi and gave money to Persian architects for mosque building. This cultural change saw the near cease of the Arabic language, kept up only by the Quran. We're going to turn it over to Luigi Haligi, who's going to tell us a little bit about the cordial relationship with the Persians. Luigi?
Hello, yes, here we are with Malik Shah. So you're known, of course, for hiring the Persian Nizam al-Mulk as your vizier. Very, very progressive. So tell us about some of your other accomplishments.
Yes, I am known for far and wide for having built the great mosque Masjid-i-Hame in Isfahan.
Yes, you are. Of course, it is truly great. We were there just last summer for a segment about vaping. Now, you're also known for blinding your brother Takash when he revolted against you. So, any comment about that?
Oh.
Well, here's your what? Oh, thank you. She got you some water. How kind. Are you okay? Oh. Okay, well, oh geez, there must have been poison. You know, back to you, I guess.
Thanks, Luigi. Now, after Malik Shah's death right there in 1092, the Seljuks would have no great ruler again. Because of this, no ruler took his place, and the empire immediately divided into smaller groups. Next came the Crusades, which were fought between the Turks and the Westerners over the Holy Land of the Middle East. In 1095, Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade. He called for Christians to drive Muslims and Jews from Jerusalem in Anatolia. They went through Constantinople into Palestine, conquering Jerusalem in 1099, and thus forming the Latin Christian kingdom, which lasted for nearly a century. After some time, the famous Seljuk captain Saladin gathered the remaining Muslim fragments of the Seljuk Empire to revolt, taking Jerusalem back in 1187. Weaker and weaker crusades continued, with little results, until the 13th century, by which time the West posed very little threat to the Turks. This time of power for them was short-lived, however, as the Mongols soon became a strengthening enemy. And, in 1258, the Mongols had advanced ruthlessly and extensively under Genghis Khan. His son Hulagu had reached the outskirts of Baghdad, where a wall stood. The Mongols easily overcame it and lay waste to the city. This massacre ended with the gruesome execution of the last Abbasid caliph by way of horse trampling. Moving on. The powerful city of Nineveh fell in 612 BC at the hands of the army of Medes and the Chaldeans, and the city was later burned and razed. Many of the tablets of Nineveh were preserved, however. The surrounding peoples, including the Hebrew prophet Nahum, were happy to see the vicious Assyrians fall. Around 600 BC, Babylon became the center of a new Chaldean empire, where Hammurabi had once ruled. King Nebuchadnezzar restored the city of Babylon. Here with the scoop is our own Luigi Haligi.
Hi again. Yes, I'm here in ancient Babylon, where Nebuchadnezzar has built his fabulous 75-foot terraces, each with the wonderful hanging gardens. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Tell us all about it, Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes, hello. My wife missed the shrubs of her homeland, and so I ordered the gardens to be built.
Yes, that's right, you did. The extravagant city also features the plaques engraved with rulers' names, a 300-foot 7-tiered ziggurat observatory for the priests. It's a beautiful place to live. Back to you.
Thank you, Luigi. Now, Nebuchadnezzar's advanced empire fell prey to the Persians soon after his death, however. Moving on.